Hi, welcome to today's lesson. Today we're going to be looking at the quadratic formula. The quadratic formula. Okay, now you might know it as by a different name, so I'm just going to write down that formula just in case, and also for good reference. Okay, if a quadratic is in the form ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. So if I've got it in the form that, well, all the x squareds, all the x's, and everything is on one side of the equal sign, then the solution, the answer to x, is x equals minus b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac over 2a. Okay, so that will give me my two solutions. Remember, with solving quadratics, you've got always two solutions. X squared, two solutions. Linear, one solution, where x, to make the whole thing equal 0. Quadratic, two solutions, okay? And this gives you two solutions. Minus b plus the square root of yada yada over 2a is the one. Minus b minus the square root of yada yada over 2a is the other. Okay, so let's look at an example on how to solve this and the tricks and tips when you need to solve it. So, e.g., we're going to look at 3x squared plus 5x minus 13. 3x squared plus 5x minus 13 equals 0. Okay, so first thing, this is very nice because it's all equal to 0. So I've got everything on the one side, okay, which is what you have to do when you're solving quadratics. Okay? Everything must be on the one side. That's my first step. The second thing is I look at this and read the question carefully. If the question says, solve this correct to 2 decimal places, then immediately you must click, oh, okay, I'm either going to have to use a quadratic equation or I'm going to have to complete the square. Alright, so I haven't put that solve this to 2 decimal places, or sometimes it says solve it leaving your answer as a surd. Okay, so this has got just up to there. So I'm going to say, okay, right, let's see if I can factorize it. Always go for factorizing first. So I say, what are the factors of 13 and 3 that combine to give me 5? I did this in solving quadratic equations, okay? So the factors of 13 are 1 and 13, it's a prime. The factors of 3 are 1 and 3, it's also a prime. There's no combination of 1 and 3 and 13 and 3. The 13 and 3 will give me what? 39 and then 1. I can either get 40 or 38. And if I swap it around, I either get 16 or 10. I can never get 5. So this is not going to factorize nicely. So, fine. If I'm not going to use completing the square, I'm going to use that guy. So, let's use him. Here's the equation. X equals minus b, minus b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Now, some countries will require you to memorize this. Some countries will give it to you on a formula sheet. You've got to check with your exam board or your teacher whether you have to know this off by heart. I've been doing this for like 25 years or so. I know this thing off by heart. Okay, so all that we have to do is we have to take with the numbers from here and put them into here and then use a calculator. Okay, or if you get really advanced, if you're talking about a higher year 10 paper or a year 11 paper, they might ask you to do this without a calculator, leaving your answer as surd, okay, but that's incorporating this and surd. Okay, we'll get to that later. So, let's just put this in. I've got minus, and b is now 5. Please note how I'm putting it in brackets, okay. Plus or minus the square root of, this thing is actually called the discriminant. When you get into year 12 and year 11, you start to look at very cool things that you can say from whether this is 0, positive, negative. It's quite interesting. Okay, but we're not looking at that yet. B squared, so that's 5 squared. Now watch this. Minus 4, A is 3, times by 3. C is negative 13. Not 13, negative 13. Look here, plus C, plus negative 13. Negative 13. Please remember that the sign is part of the number. Okay, so when you substitute it, you must substitute it with the sign as well. All over 2 and put in a there, 2 times 3. Okay, I haven't bothered positives because positives, man, I mean, like I could have written positive 5, positive 3, no worries, but definitely negatives, you have to substitute with the sign. Okay, now there it is. So on your calculator, you can literally put this whole thing in using your fraction key. Fraction, numerator, minus brackets 5, plus square roots, put all of that in, okay, then go down into the denominator, 2 times 3, or times 6, okay? And that you do that 1. And you do that the first time, and you will get 1.4. You should get, when you put plus, you should get x equals 1.4, if I'm rounding to one decimal place, okay? Then you go backspace. The easiest way is just to backspace. On most calculators, you have a backspace button. So backspace until your cursor is there, delete the plus and put in a minus. Or you can retype the whole thing, okay? But I always suggest to my kids, just backspace until you get there, delete the plus, put in a minus here, and then press equals, and you should get negative 3.1. X equals negative 3.1. Okay, so what does that mean? That means that if I have to substitute 1.4 into this equation, I get 0. Or if I have to substitute negative 3.1 into this equation, I get 0. I've rounded it to one decimal place, so you might get close to 0 because of my rounding error, but that's good enough. Okay, this is just substitution. Like my first video that I did way back when I was talking about substitution to algebraic expressions, this is where you're going. Okay, and this is why I always suggest substituting with a negative. Okay, let's try something a little bit more challenging. Well, the thing is, once you know this, once you've got this substitution down, it can't really get much more challenging, other than this extra step. So, let's take a look at the next example, e.g. 20x plus 4 equals 3x minus 6x squared. Okay, now, first thing, alarm bells should be ringing, because you say, okay, this is a quadratic, highest power of 2. That's the guy I've got to worry about. Okay, so if it's a quadratic, first rule with solving quadratics, well for me I always say first rule with solving quadratics, get everything to the one side equal to 0. Okay, so I've got to move all of this to this side. And how am I going to move it? My favorite word, opposite to other side. Okay, so if I move it all over to this side, right, let's leave this 20x plus 4. I'm just going to leave that there. Bring the 3x over, opposite of plus 3x is minus 3x, minus 3x. Opposite minus 6x squared is plus 6x squared, plus 6x squared equals 0. Okay, right. Now I just tidy everything up, right? So 6x squared, I'm going to put it in the front. 20 minus 3 is minus 17x plus 4 equals 0. Bada bing. Okay? I look at this and I say, what are the factors of 4 and 6 that give me 17? I don't think there are any. Okay? So I'm just going to jump straight in and use the quadratic formula. Fantastic. So the quadratic formula is this. X equals minus b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac over 2a. Okay? And the substitution is really this straightforward, which equals minus b is negative 17. Alright? Plus or minus the square root, negative 17 squared minus 4 times a is 6, okay, times c is positive 4. 4. Alright? All over 2 times 6. Okay? Plug it into your calculator and you should get x equals negative 0.26, rounded to 2 decimal places, or x equals negative 2.57 if I round it to 2 decimal places. Okay. What's really interesting is the derivation of this. I actually use completing the square. Well, I don't. We use, all the mathematicians in the world, use completing the square to take it from ax squared plus bx plus c into this. And that's on another video. It's really useful to go and watch that video because I show you in addition what happens when you break this apart. Okay? And you can look at what the roots are, what your axis of symmetry is, what your turning point is, as a shortcut for turning points. Okay. Alrighty. There's more notes on the blog. There's more videos on this channel. You know what to do. Remember, I'm here for you.